Scholars, today we're doing Lesson 2, What is Fairy Tale Writing? I can identify the characteristics of a Cinderella story. So today we're going to think about some of the Cinderella stories that we read together. So think about the stories that your teacher read to you. So one story you may have read together is Baba the Cowboy Prince. Maybe you read Cendrillon. Maybe you read Fanny's Dream. There may be other stories you read too. So I'm going to think about the story Baba the Cowboy Prince. First I want to think about who is the narrator? Who's telling the story? Well, in this version of it, the story is told in third person. So it's just kind of this outside person telling the story. Now, when I think about the narrator Cendrillon, it's the fairy godmother who's telling the story. Now let's think about who's Cinderella and Baba the Cowboy Prince. It's Baba. And who's Cinderella and Cendrillon? It's Cendrillon. And Baba the Cowboy Prince, the stepsisters, are actually stepbrothers, Dwayne and Milton. In Cendrillon, she has one stepsister named Vitaline. And in Baba the Cowboy Prince, there is a stepdad. In Cendrillon, there's a stepmom, Madame Prosperine. And then in Baba the Cowboy Prince, there's a fairy god cow. And in Cendrillon, there's the godmother, and she's a washerwoman. And I was thinking, you may have also read Cinderella with your teacher. There could be a lot of different versions of Cinderella you read together. Now we're going to look at a version of Cinderella that a student wrote. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there lived a handsome puppy. His name was Cinder Puppy, and his mother had died 3 weeks ago. Now where this story begins, Cinder Puppy was sitting in the cinders. After a long day's work, Cinder Puppy's mother, Daisy, had been forced to remarry a cruel, massive bulldog named Hugo 4 months before she died. Hugo had moved in with his son, Buster. Ever since then, Cinder Puppy had been run ragged. So already, if I'm filling this out for Cinder Puppy, then in Cinder Puppy, the narrator is third person, I know that. Cinderella is Cinder Puppy. And there's a stepbrother named Buster, and the stepfather is Hugo. So I'm going to write down Buster for the stepbrother and Hugo. When Cinder Puppy sat in the cinders, he began to think about his mother, Daisy. He thought about her creamy white fur and how kind she had been to him. 3 days later, Princess Rosie Poodle's messenger came to Cinder Puppy's house. Princess Rosie Poodle was the richest and prettiest dog in the land. Princess Rosie Poodle's messenger was yelling at the top of his lungs so everybody could hear him, and this is what he said. Princess Rosie Poodle has decided to take a husband. A contest will be held at the Field of Cats. The top 5 will go to a ball. At once, Hugo and Buster ordered Cinder Puppy to go to the dog store and get them the best costumes he could find. And while you're at it, you might as well get us some exercising sets. Now be on your way, you little scrawny puppy, said Hugo. While he was at the dog store, Cinder Puppy saw a nice fluffy bed, but Hugo and Buster had only given him enough money to buy their costumes and exercising sets. The next day, Buster and Hugo made Cinder Puppy's work harder than she ever had before. Then, Cinder Puppy, groom my fur. Cinder Puppy, wash my face. Cinder Puppy, get my costume ready. Then a carriage rolled up to the house. Time to go, said Hugo. He and Buster stepped into the carriage and rode off. Cinder Puppy went back into the house and began to cry. Then he saw a bright light in the window, and suddenly a little poodle with stars in her fur and wings and a wand appeared. So here's the part with the fairy godmother. What? Who are you? Cinder Puppy said, astonished. I am your fairy god poodle, replied the creature. You can call me Flowers. So I can add here on my sheet that the fairy godmother is Flowers. Wow, breathed Cinder Puppy. Now let's get you ready for the contest, said Flowers, and set to work. With just a tap of her wand, Flowers changed Cinder Puppy's dirty rags into an even better costume than Hugo and Buster's. Then with another tap of her wand, she turned 5 mice into horses, 1 fat rat into a coachman, and a giant pumpkin into a gold glistening carriage. Excuse me, said Cinder Puppy, but I won't go to the contest all dirty like this. Oh, I almost forgot, said Flowers. And with a tap of her wand, she changed Cinder Puppy's dirty fur into clean, shiny fur. Now off you go, said Flowers, and Cinder Puppy stepped into the carriage and rode off to the contest. At the contest, Cinder Puppy had a good time. So far, he had beaten every cat that came to him. To his astonishment, he became one of the 5. When Cinder Puppy stepped into his carriage, a guard came up to him and told him when and where the ball was at. When he got home, Flowers was waiting for him and quickly changed him back to himself while he was finishing up his chores. When Hugo and Buster got home, Cinder Puppy found out that Buster had become one of the 5 too. Then he went to sleep. 2 days later, the day of the ball arrived. Hugo was fussing over Buster like he was going into space, and Cinder Puppy was working hard too. When their carriage rolled up, Hugo and Buster stepped in and rode off, leaving Cinder Puppy alone once again. History repeated itself, and Cinder Puppy began to cry. Once again, Flowers, the fairy god poodle, appeared and got Cinder Puppy ready for the ball. She changed Cinder Puppy's dirty rags into a fancy tuxedo and the same old pumpkin into a gold glistening carriage. Then she turned 2 fat rats into coachmen and a gerbil into a driver. She even gave him a shimmering diamond collar. Then Cinder Puppy stepped into the carriage. Second graders, I'm going to stop there. So you have 2 jobs today. The first thing I'd like you to do is please finish reading Cinder Puppy. So start right here at the word wait. You're going to start reading Cinder Puppy on page 4 and finish it. It finishes on page 5. So you're going to finish reading Cinder Puppy. The second thing you need to do is you don't need to copy what I wrote, but I want you to choose one version of Cinderella. You could choose Fanny's Dream, you could choose Cinderella, or any version of Cinderella your teacher read to you. And then, for that story, I want you to fill out the narrator, Cinderella, who the stepsisters and stepmom are, and the fairy godmother in that story. If you want to, you only have to do it for one story, but if you want to do more than one, you can.